HarperCollins presents Forgotten Forests, 12,000 Years of British and Irish Woodlands by Jonathan Mullard, read by Joe Jameson. The clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness. John Muir. Preface. It is not so much for its beauty that the forest makes a claim upon men's hearts, as for that subtle something, that quality of air, that emanation from old trees, that so wonderfully changes and renews a weary spirit. Robert Louis Stevenson. This book has its origins in one of my regular journeys in the Scottish borders. On the left-hand side of the A68, as you approach the town of Jedburgh from the south, there is a prominent oak tree, the capon tree. It is obviously very old, and there is a sign visible from the road giving its name. A survivor from the ancient Jed forest, it is a renowned individual, one of the 50 trees included in the Tree Council's book Great British Trees, which was published in 2002. A painting of the capon tree by the Victorian landscape painter Arthur Perigal the Younger is displayed in Jedburgh Museum. There were also once capon trees at Brampton in Cumbria and Alnwick in Northumberland. The name of these trees appears to have been derived from the Scots word kep, which means to meet, the trees being places where the border clans rallied for action in times of trouble. Another, less likely suggestion for the name of the Jedburgh tree is that it is derived from the capuche, the hood worn by the monks who might have sheltered under its branches on their way to or from the nearby abbey. Living in a border town, Jedburgh's families were continually involved in fighting the English, and the Jethart Callants had a reputation for outstanding bravery. For a long time, these were debatable lands, neither England nor Scotland. Both Callants and Capon Tree are celebrated each July, when the Callant, a young person chosen to represent the town, leads a mounted cavalcade on a series of historic rides, the most important being to Redesdale in Northumberland, to commemorate the last cross-border skirmish on the 7th of July 1575. On Festival Day itself, the Callant visits Ferniehurst Castle, and on the return home stops at the Capon Tree, taking a sprig of oak and wearing it in the lapel of their jacket. Unfortunately, in 2022, one half of the tree, which was previously supported by timber props, collapsed to the side and landed on the ground. As the root is still intact, the landowner, Lothian Estates, intends to leave the enormous bough in place to see if it survives. The Jethart Callant has planted a tree next to it, grown from one of its acorns, in order to provide continuity should the whole tree die. Over the years, I started to wonder what happened to the Jed forest. Was it really felled to build wooden ships for the Royal Navy, as is often stated? And if so, why did the capon tree survive? Despite another sign saying that the tree was the last survivor of the old forest, I subsequently found out that it was not alone. Around 600 metres to the east, on the other side of the road, stand the mighty King of the Wood and the Crooked family, while a similar distance to the west is the oak bush. These 4 ancient oaks are the sole remnants of a vanished ecosystem. I have always loved woodlands and forests, but it was my grandfather, Tom Batchelor, who really taught me to appreciate trees. I spent many of my summer holidays in the 1960s with him, going out into the South Shropshire countryside during his work as an advisor for the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. Thinking about the loss of the Jed forest reminded me that, as we travelled from farm to farm, my grandfather would often point out trees that were possible survivors from the Morph forest, which once stretched from Bridgnorth to the appropriately named Six Ashes and Claverley. Apart from the Jed and Morph forests, there were undoubtedly many other forests in Britain and Ireland that had been lost. But where were they, and what were their stories? When did they first come into being? And who remembers them now? I decided to find out. One of my most treasured possessions is a magnificent leaf-shaped flint dagger found by my grandfather as it lay shining in the sun on the freshly
Sample complete. Ready to continue?